Today's guest is Dick Lyles. Dick Lyles has been a longtime influential Catholic organizational leader, author, radio host, and film producer. His list of achievements include founding a college, serving as a longtime host of the Catholic Business Hour, and being the author of several books. Currently, he is the CEO of Origin Entertainment and is about to release the amazing film Fatima.
Every time I read the name of one of our boys who lost his life, I have great admiration for them.
They defend our progressive ideas that will free our country from religious superstitions.
Who are you?
I come from heaven.
Who are you talking to? What do you want from us?
For the gift
I can see her now.
for the air we breathe, for the
It is a sin making lies up.
It's true, Mama. She was as real as you are.
Why would the Mother of God choose you? What's so special about you?
we pray.
Thank you for joining us today, Dick.
Hi, Jermaine. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, before we begin, I like to do a little bit of rapid fire questions. So they're just 5 easy peasies, whatever comes to your mind, fire away. So
Okay.
What's your favorite encyclical?
My favorite encyclical is Sanctissimus Annus, that was written by John Paul II in the early 1900s. It was on the 100th anniversary of Rerum Novarum, in which he, Pope Leo XIII wrote Rerum Novarum in late 19th century and predicted the demise of communism. Then 100 years later, Pope John Paul II said, now that we've seen the demise of communism, we have to ask what the threats to capitalism are in the 21st century.
Okay,
And
nice.
so and what he predicted for the most part has turned out to be coming true as we're living in these difficult times today.
To follow up to that, your favorite saint?
My favorite saint is Saint Francis, I think.
Good.
He's, I say his Serenity Prayer every day and have since I was 16 years old, at least once a day.
And what's the greatest act of Catholic charity that you've ever seen?
Oh, there's so many.
Probably the deepest rapid fire questions out there.
These aren't like simple, easy to think about, Jermaine. They're interesting, but I think the ones that were probably the deepest, involve the ones where people have given up their lives for their beliefs, or they've actually martyred themselves. And one of the things about Fatima that we're going to talk about that I think is interesting is that the shepherds became, I believe, they became living martyrs in August when they were thrown into jail, and they said, if you don't repent, you're going to die. And they said, they didn't say repent. They said, if you don't take back what you've said and admit it was a lie, we're going to boil you in oil. And they took them one at a time, and all the kids stuck by their story. And so I think at that stage of the game, they became living martyrs. Father Andrew Apostoli, before he passed away, he and I had numerous conversations about that. And I'm actually convinced that they met all the tests for martyrdom, even though they weren't killed. It wasn't their fault somebody didn't pull the trigger. They were ready for it. So yeah, it was pretty interesting.
Oh, absolutely. And it's really interesting in regards to that film to see like Cradle Catholics and how they lived out their faith in that film. For yourself, are you a Cradle Catholic, a convert, a revert? Where are you in that Catholic journey?
I was a Cradle Catholic. I mean, I was close to my Catholic values most of the time. I was an altar boy when I grew up. I didn't go to Catholic schools. I went to public schools, but I was a Boy Scout and got all my faith-based merit badges and that sort of thing, became an Eagle Scout, and then was Catholic lay leader aboard my ship in Vietnam. And so I've always been pretty close to my faith.
Mm. How would you say your Catholic faith kind of impacted you and drove you in the early part of your life, being a Boy Scout and being in the military and service and that sort of thing?
Well, it definitely gave me a clear framework for making decisions, making choices in life. I think that my Catholic beliefs have always informed the decisions I've made about most of the things that I've ever done. In 2004, I had a near-death experience, actually an out-of-body experience and so forth, which even drove that deeper to say, as now that I've survived that and I've given this extension here on earth to live my life with my wife, Martha, who's also deep faith, we wanted to get it right. And so we drove it down even deeper and have dedicated our lives, I think, to helping get inspirational messages about faith, hope, and love to the world, which is what Fatima does.
Mm-hmm. That being a Cradle Catholic, obviously you had your faith in how you functioned. I guess when you have an experience like that, that really puts a lot of things in perspective. How do you think, like you speak, or you just spoke about how spreading messages of love, do you think you've drastically changed in how you functioned in your organizations after an experience like that versus before?
Well, it changed, like I said, we were always good Catholics and reasonably close to our faith. So I don't want to make it sound like it was overly profound, but after we had that experience, we started saying, and I survived only due to the power of prayer. Doctors had said there was nothing else I could do. It's all over, everything was done. And so they said to my wife, we know you've been praying. If that's what you think will help, then that's the only thing that will probably help. So they started praying, and then I recovered, a miraculous recovery. And so we said, given the fact that I am here solely through the power of prayer, we want to make sure we get the rest of this right. And so we really went to a great deal of time asking, how do we answer our call? How do we answer God's call for us? In fact, that's what led us, one of the major things that led us to write the book, Answer Your Call. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we came upon after about 6 to 9 months of asking, what does God want from me? Archbishop Chaput, he said, if you really want to answer the question, what does God want from you? You have to first answer the question, what does God want? And he said, God wants one thing above everything else, and that's to save the soul of the world in the name of his son, Jesus Christ. If that's what he wants, then what he wants from you has pretty straightforward implications. You've got to work on saving your own soul and from now until the day you die, and then you've got to work on helping to save the souls of others. And so that's become kind of the guiding framework for the decisions we make about how we spend this time we're living our lives.
Mm-hmm. And I definitely see that with the work that you do at Origin and Act One and the Genesis initiative. Can you speak to the importance of those organizations as it relates to your mission, your vocation, as you just sort of stated it there?
Well, one of the common denominators that all three of those have is they're all related to filmmaking and to movies. And one of the things that has emerged in our culture today, like it or not, is that in many respects, movie theaters have become the churches of the masses. That's where a lot of people go to get their values shaped. Those are the things that have an impact on culture. Mm-hmm. And on the values that people hold important in their life. And so we felt that if we really want to make a positive impact on people's lives and bring them closer to the Lord and closer to eternal happiness and so forth, then we really need to do it in a way that also makes a positive impact on the culture. So Act One is an organization that was founded by Barbara Nicolosi years ago, and it has done a wonderful job of training Christians who want to become screenwriters and producers for those vocations. And we've been really successful with that. Genesis Initiative is a nonprofit 501c3 organization whose mission is to support the development, production, and distribution of Catholic-themed movies in Hollywood. And we've made some award-winning pictures that have just been phenomenal and phenomenally well received, and we're going to continue to do that. And Genesis played a key role in the development of Fatima and getting it put together. Origin Entertainment is the company that is the lead producer for Fatima. Mm-hmm. And our brand is transformative entertainment. By that, we mean we want people to be transformed. We want people to feel better about themselves and better about the world around them as a result of having watched one of our movies. Mm-hmm. And we've decided to do that through the developing, producing, and distribution of movies about the good, the true, and the beautiful. Stories of true heroism and courage that both are inspirational and aspirational, that give people hope for the future in the context of divine love.
Mm-hmm. Well, with that in mind, Fatima is going to be released on August 14th. I've been very fortunate to get a sneak peek. As just beautifully shot, beautifully acted. Can you speak to the importance of Fatima to this time period, and why Fatima of all of the Catholic stories that could be told?
Yeah, I think that what we are hoping we can do is sort of rebrand or reposition or reignite people's passion for the messages of Fatima for the 21st century. Fatima was probably one of the most significant events in the 20th century in terms of the impact that it had on the world that very few people realize. But there's a scene in the movie that if you saw the movie, you saw the scene. It's my favorite scene. It's where an older Professor Nichols, who's played by Harvey Keitel, is interviewing Sonia Braga, who is an older Sister Lucia. She's in the convent at Coimbra. And he says a number of things to her that are pretty profound. But one of the questions that he asked her is, he said, "Do you have any regrets?" And she kind of cocks her head a little bit and gets that just lovely, beautiful smile that Sister Lucia has. There's so many pictures of her with that smile. And she says, now this is the setting now, is 1991, right after the collapse of the Berlin Wall. And she said, "Does it look to you like the world has heard the message of heavenly peace?" And then she pauses a minute and says, "That's my only regret, not having done enough to serve my mother." And so one of the things that I hope people will leave the movie with is it will cause them to think about whether or not they are doing enough and whether or not they've done enough. And as they picture themselves 10, 15, 20 years in the future in their lives, I would like them to sort of be able to say, have I done enough to please my mother and to help bring these messages of faith, peace, love to the world? And say, yes, I've done a lot. In other words, we want to animate people's passion to the point that they take action to bring about the messages of Fatima in our culture today, because Lord knows we need it.
It's sort of like this, a sparking of people really looking internally for their vocation. And I guess that it's also that idea that we all are called to be saints, and it's up to us to act towards that. So that's a great bar for people to reach to in that film.
Absolutely.
Do you think Fatima can also serve as a bit of, I guess maybe a rallying cry or something for other Catholic creatives to get behind, as something that they can aspire to create and do? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I absolutely think it can. I mean, and it has to a large extent. I mean, Portugal, you know, Our Lady told the people of Portugal, pray the rosary. There's going to be another world war. She predicted World War II and said, but if you pray the rosary, you can avoid that. And people in Portugal, across Portugal, prayed the rosary, and they were the only country in Europe spared the ravages of World War II. They weren't involved in World War II, which is why that beautiful crown was created to put on the icon at the end of World War II. All the women from Portugal sent jewels, not all the women, but women from all over Portugal sent their precious stones and jewels to be made into that lovely crown because that happened. So we have plenty of evidence that praying the rosary works, that it makes a difference. It's one of the things we started doing. I mean, when we were first starting on this journey, and you know, you have to, any project like this, you have to say, what are my beliefs and how deep are they and how profound are they? And so we're talking about that, and it occurred to me that we really do believe that Blessed Mother appeared at Fatima and said what she said and said what they said she said, and all those sorts of things. In other words, we, in essence, believe in the truth of the Fatima stories. Mm-hmm. And then we said, well, then why aren't we praying the rosary every day? I mean, why would she come and tell us all to pray the rosary, go to all that trouble, and have us say, okay, we believe you, but we're not going to pray the rosary? I mean, it just doesn't make sense. So we've been doing that every day since we started on this project, and it's been incredible. And the miracles that has brought have been profound as well.
Well, it's definitely a blessing to be able to combine one's faith and one's work, the vocation. You're able to do that, being at the CEO of Origin Entertainment, working at Salt and Light. That's something I'm privileged to be able to do openly. Also, in a talk that you gave to the Catholic Professional and Business Club owner of Orange County, you did this several years ago. You spoke on people closing the gap between faith and work. What does that mean for you, and what does that look like for people who don't work in spaces like you and I work in?
Well, that's a great question, Jermaine, because for years, for a number of years, you mentioned in your introduction, I did the Catholic Business Hour radio show on EWTN's global radio network. It was a weekly program, and it was a call-in show. So I would have guests, but I'd also have people call in with questions about their faith and questions about faith at work and challenges they were facing on the job. It was kind of an anything goes. And a question I would get about every couple of months, every 2 or 3 months, would be somebody would call in and say, I'm feeling called to serve the Lord at a higher level, to serve the Lord more fully in my life and so forth. And I'm wondering if I should leave my job, my current job, and go to work in a Catholic ministry, a Catholic apostolate. And my answer was, there's no doubt that Catholic apostolate, Catholic ministries need good people. They're always looking for good people to help carry out their mission. But before we go down that path, let me ask you a question. What are you doing in your current job to serve the Lord? And they would say, well, you don't get it. I'm a drywall hanger. The first person that called and asked the question said, I'm a letter carrier. I'm a postal service employee. Someone called, was a rental car office manager, an engineer called. I mean, from all walks of life, they were calling. And I said, no, I get it. I absolutely get it. But why do you think God put you there? Because he wanted you to ignore him? Because he wanted you to be an example of his virtues wherever you are and serve him well in that capacity. I said, the first thing we have to do is say, where's God at work in wherever I am today? Mm-hmm. And what can I do to serve him in that capacity and in that role? Mm-hmm. And so that was another reason that we wrote the book, that my wife Martha and I wrote the book, Answer Your Call. It's based on the premise that Maximilian Kolbe came up with that said each of us is given a mission or purpose in life. And actually, back in the 1930s, he used the word mission. It's an overworked word these days with people, what's your mission in life and all that stuff. But he actually used that word. And he said, we're each given a mission or purpose in life. We're each given a certain mix of gifts and attributes and traits commensurate with that mission. We either have them or we have the potential to develop them. And then the third thing is we're also surrounded by God's abundant grace. And so it's our job to combine those three. So what we do is we picture those as kind of three sort of overlapping circles. My purpose is one circle, my grace is another circle, and my gifts are a third circle. And most of us, most of us have that overlapping to some extent. What the saints have done is they've completely integrated all three of those circles so they completely overlap and they're concentric. They have a perfect integration of their unique purpose, their special gifts, and God's grace. And so what we're saying is that that's what the goal for all of us should be. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I have to walk away from my day job, and go serve in a Catholic ministry. It means that there are a lot of ways that I can be a shining example of God's love and grace wherever I am today. And I also think that's a subliminal message that comes through with the story of Fatima. One of the questions we explore, Professor Nichols asks Sister Lucia in the convent in the 1990s, he said, why do you think God chose you of all people, you and Jacinta and Francisco? Here you are, three basically illiterate, impoverished children in the middle of nowhere. I mean, Fatima was, 100 people, population of 100, miles from anywhere, no television, no internet, no phones, nothing. And he appears to them. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, 70,000 people show up in the middle of nowhere to witness this miracle of the sun that happened on October 13th. And so he says, why do you think God, the Blessed Virgin chose you? Why did the Blessed Mother choose to appear to the three of you? Now think about how most people would answer that question in today's culture. A narcissistic culture would be me, I. It's all about me. It's all about, well, he wanted me and I and all that kind of stuff. And the answer that Sister Lucia, if you recall from the movie, gives is a really great one. She says, because it was necessary. The world needed to hear this message. And of course, they took the message to the world. So God works in strange ways and chooses different people. And
so currently you're the CEO of Origin Entertainment. You're an author, a producer, a speaker. You're immensely busy. With everything that you do, what do you hope the next phase of your vocational journey is?
Well, I'm not looking at any major turns on the road here. I think we're on a good path, and I think that keeps being reinforced. Making Fatima took more than a decade, and as we hit obstacle after obstacle after obstacle, we would get down on our knees and pray and say, Lord, is this really what you want us to do? And every time we would do that, within the next few days, something miraculous would happen. That would be really significant and reinforcing. So as long as those kind of things continue to happen, as long as we continue to get the kind of reinforcement, there are just an endless list of potential movies that could be made that are inspirational and aspirational stories of true courage and beauty and faith and hope and all those things. I mean, I have a list as long as my arm of movie projects that would be fabulous, and which just kills me, by the way, because there's all these great ideas of great movies to be made, and then you look around at some of the garbage that's being produced, and it just breaks your heart that people are using this medium for abusing it the way they do to not bring good into the world. So I think pretty much we're just going to keep moving down this path, and trying to make some really exciting projects that touch people's lives in a very special way and bring them closer to the Lord.
Well, with knowing that Fatima was literally a decade in the making, and you face obstacles and hurdles and continue forging ahead, what wisdom can you offer for people trying to identify and cultivate their own vocational journey, even though they may face some sort of opposition to get there?
I think in terms of opposition, one of the things that everybody thinks is that opposition is only something that other people encounter. And it's not. We all encounter opposition. If any goal that's worth achieving, there are going to be obstacles that come up that stand in the way of achieving that goal. And so you have to ask yourself, when those obstacles occur, where is God at work in this? And what does God really want me to do? And if you ask those questions, where is God at work in this? And what does God really want from me in this situation? What choices can I make to make this bring glory and honor to Him in a meaningful way? Then I think you're probably going to be pretty safe most of the time following that path. I think people should do things they enjoy doing, things they do well, with projects that produce results that bring glory and honor to God. And I think if you're doing that, then you're pretty safe.
It's a good formula for people to follow to fulfill their vocation, their gift, and their purpose. So, Dick, I really appreciate your time today. I know you're immensely busy. Thank you for your time. Thank you to you and your team for creating Fatima. I highly encourage that people go check it out. I loved it. So
it'll be in theaters August 14th. We want as many people as possible to go that weekend and to buy theaters out, sell theaters. It's really important the first few weeks that a lot of people show up. There'll be social distancing. The theaters are taking all the precautions. Everything it will be safe to go, but it's going to be important to how easy it'll be for us to get it to the rest of the world. Depends on how well it does those first few weeks that it's open in August.
Definitely good to know. Thank you so much for your time, Dick.
Thanks, Jermaine. God bless you. Keep up the good work.
When is this going to end?
All you need to say now is, I made everything up.
I'm so sorry you couldn't see her.
Faith begins at the edges of understanding.